Everybody, welcome to another great discussion we've got planned today from the team at Reuters Events for insurance. We are talking to a number of experts who, some of them were together with us last week at the Future of Insurance conference, and we're continuing the conversation today. We're talking about how to transform insurance CX to retain customers, especially in this period of rising costs, rising rates. So it's not just cost for us as carriers, customers are seeing it too, and it's bringing forward some of those on the fence decisions for people who are looking at whether to stay with their carrier or maybe to jump ship. How do we navigate all that so we don't have any push, whether it's on the rate side or the customer experience side, to drive people to think about moving coverage? In that conversation, we're going to have some opening thoughts. We're going to have some Q&A, which means time for all of you to pose the questions you want answered and discussed from this great panel. So watch for that, and you can pop your questions into the Q&A section in Zoom at any point. There should be a little Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Go ahead. You don't have to wait until the Q&A time opens up. You can pop those questions in at any point, and I will be watching for them to see which ones we can engage in as a group. And speaking of me, I'm your moderator for today. I'm Brian Falchuk. I'm the author of the Future of Insurance book series and the managing partner of Insurance Evolution Partners. And I have a fantastic panel with me. I'm not the main event. I am just here to bring forward the conversation and the points from the great folks that are joining us today. We have people from across P&C and life, which will be a really interesting way to look at that perspective. And let me tell you who's joining us today. We've got Lynn Bosted, who is the Claims Strategy Director for Business Design for American Family. We've got Sujit Luke, who is the head of digital claims for Mass Mutual. We have Kent Lawson, who's the Executive Director, Brand and Consumer Experience for Blue Cross Blue Shield Association, adding the life insurance perspective, and Althea Garvey, who's the VP and Chief Claims Officer for Life Care Assurance. We also have Stephanie Banky, who's the Senior Solutions Consultant for Hi Marley, the communications solution that looks across a number of carriers. So Stephanie, I'm going to be leaning on you to give this broad view on so many of the things that we're hitting into. But these points are focused on, what we've all been living for the past couple of years now and beyond, to be fair, but around the push on CX. It's driving us to change the way we interact with our customers. Certainly that bar is rising for what's an acceptable customer experience, as everyone has had to digitize, not just us on the insurance side, but of course, consumers, our distribution partners. The bar of what makes for an acceptable customer experience, an acceptable level of digital customer experience. Sure, it varies by person, but it's up across the board. I don't think there's any question of that. And the thing is, I've heard some carriers say, we're good. We move the bar, we're all set now. It's not the way it works. Unfortunately, that bar continues to creep up, and so many different perspectives today on how do you live that? How do you engage with your customers while their expectations move up so you can meet them, and recognizing that keeping the customers you have is a much better proposition than having to go out and win new customers to replace them. It's not cost effective. It's not a great way to spend your time. And you really just keep churning through the general share stealing of the market versus really moving your business forward. So CX is nice of a discussion as it's always been, treat your customers right and give them a good experience. It's actually mission critical to the strategic success of your business. P&C, life, health, I don't care what piece of it you're in, or a totally different industry that's nowhere near as cool as insurance, it still matters, right? And so that's the conversation we're going to be having today. I'm going to open with some thoughts from everyone, and then we'll move into Q&A. But Lynn, if you don't mind, if you could open up with some perspective from American Family.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. As Brian said, my name is Lynn Bosted, and I lead the strategy business design team at American Family Insurance Claim Services, which is also known as Afix. And for those of you who aren't familiar with us, we provide claim services to all the operating companies owned by American Family Insurance Holding Company. That includes the General, and I'm sure you've seen the Shack commercials, Homesite, Main Street America, Connect, powered by American Family Insurance, which was previously Ameriprise Auto and Home, and of course, American Family Mutual Insurance Company. And each of these brands is unique, as are their customer needs and preferences. At Afix, we're committed to honoring those differences while at the same time making the overall claims process more supportive for everyone. There's definitely commonality in what all customers expect, even as preferences change. They still want an effortless claims process. They want things to be fast. So today's webinar is a topic I'm excited to talk about. Transforming the customer experience is truly top of mind for us, and that extends beyond our policyholders to include agents, partners, vendors, and adjusters. I'm sure you've heard this. I heard it quite a bit last week at the conference. Insurance is the promise of support, and every loss deserves the best possible personalized support by empowering customer choice based on their own unique preferences and loss circumstances. To do that, at Afix, we focus on easy and fast integrations, clear communications, and human-centered process flows. And that allows us to meet our customers' changing needs and add increasing value by offering evolving products, services, and experiences that they engage with on their terms. This is how we compete in a digital age where the expectation is rapid digital enhancement. Think updated offerings on your Netflix menu or operating system and app upgrades on your phones. The value we can offer changes at the pace of innovation, and we work to set that pace while staying heavily focused on the customer experience. Thanks for your time, and I look forward to digging into all of that with everyone today.
I appreciate that, Lynn. I think it's going to be really interesting, your perspective, that so much of the pushback I hear from people is, well, we can't do it this way, or we can't use that tool because we're different, or we work differently. And here you are having to support a number of businesses that, as you said, have a unique positioning or a persona that they want to present to what their claims experience looks like. So it doesn't feel like it's all the exact same thing, just with a different logo slapped on it. That does matter. That differentiation matters, but you have to do that in a way that's scalable. You can't be building, new wheels from scratch in each and every one of the businesses. So being able to meet those customized needs in each one of your particular brands, yet do that in an efficient way, a scalable way that also recognizes the broader industry needs for digitization. So I think your perspective is going to be really valuable here, maybe pushing back on some of that notion that, oh, we can't because we're different. So, well, everybody's different, right? Yet we still have to move forward. So thank you for that. Sujit, if I can turn to you and give some perspective from MassMutual.
Sure. First of all, thanks for this opportunity to speak with the panel here. I'm Sujit Luke. I lead the digital claims team within MassMutual. MassMutual, as some of you may know, is one of the largest life, annuity, and disability insurance providers. So I have a quite unique role in the sense that I not just manage a claims operations team, but also have this opportunity to work with both the technology team as well as our data science team to build claims from scratch. So essentially, we started off as a startup operations group, and over the last 4 years have had an opportunity to kind of reimagine customer centricity using technology and data science. So quite a unique opportunity, and kind of building on the theme that you started, Brian, and Lynn, you did. I mean, to me, I think customer experience is so centric at this point. I mean, if we are talking about, creating the wow experience, we need to reset the way we think about post-issue servicing, whether it's claims, whether it's call center, whatever it is, because, we need to reset in the sense that often servicing is thought of as a cost center, but it's really a branding opportunity. Every interaction is a branding opportunity. So marketing does the brand awareness, but if we think about brand loyalty, that only comes post an actual interaction, which we support, right? So, I mean, I think I was reading a stat that, I think about 40% of the PNC customers switch carriers after a claims experience within the next 12 months. That's a huge turnover, right? And in the life space, the beneficiaries often are not even our customers. So they have no incentive to join or to buy a product from a company where they have a bad experience. So I think it's a huge opportunity. Over the years, there's been a lot of cost pressures, like Brian, you alluded to, and we forget that it's a opportunity to actually brand and win a customer, or at a minimum not lose the customer. And I think I think we'll get into specifics as we go through this conversation, but I want to tee up the conversation by saying that I think of the claims experience as a branding opportunity, not just a to-do that we need to do.
Yeah, as a former chief claims officer, I'm thankful that you said that, because so often, it is put in this like, well, and then that happens, or then we have to do that. And so, well, hang on a second. This is perhaps the most critical. We just do that component of the whole business. This is the product ultimately. And you're right, in life, there's this nuance that maybe in disability or annuities, you're still dealing with the customer who came to you in the first place. But on the core life product, you're not quite often. Or ever, unless it's fraud, I suppose. So, it's a totally different mindset around that customer experience when the customer is defined in a totally different way now.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that, Sujit. Ken, you thinking about health insurance, a totally different purchase experience for most people, not everyone, but folks who come in through their employer. It's a different way that you become a customer. There's a different sort of bar to attrition in that respect. And I've talked to health insurers who say, well, we're not going to lose them anyway unless they change jobs, or we're losing them because they're changing jobs and it has nothing to do with us, or there's nothing we could do. I'm so curious about your perspective, Ken, as you think about the the health insurance view of this and what claims delivery means in that context.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. First, I'd like to start by saying I agree with everything that Sujit just said. Every time that we have an interaction, it is a branding opportunity. And so whether it's claims, whether it's on the phone, whether it's, you're at the doctor's office, it is a place for us to show up. So we've been thinking a lot about measurement. Are those things that we've been measuring for the past couple of decades still legitimate? Are they still appropriate? Oftentimes I'm finding that yes, when we're talking about an operational or an administrative type of measurement, yes, they are, but they don't need to take center stage any longer. I think a lot of those measures are table stakes, and we're moving into an era of human centricity, as the other panelists have said so far, and that human connection. If we're talking about a technology play or a digital transformation, we have to be driving this digital transformation toward better human-to-human interactions. Whether that's you and your employer, you and your doctor, you and Blue Cross Blue Shield, all of those interactions need to be better human interactions. And I believe that we can drive those better with digital transformation, but it's got to be in service to the human. That's number one. Number two, we're thinking a lot about personalization. No one wants to be, whether it's life, whether it's P&C, whether it's health, no one wants to be an insurance customer. Insurance is a necessary evil. It is, I don't want to spend money on my health premiums. I don't want to spend money on fixing a broken leg, but those are things that we end up having to do. And so when we show up in those moments, we better show up in the right way. And I still get frustrated when I show up at my insurance company, whether it's health insurance or P&C, and I have to answer the same question 16 times. So know me. Why is it that I can call United Airlines and they answer the phone and say, "Hi, Kent, are you calling about this week's trip?" And, because they've guessed at why I'm calling, and, you've got a timestamp, a geography stamp, and, it's ready to go. So I'm really looking forward to the rest of the panelists here and the conversations we'll have over the next hour. And I'm happy to learn from all of them.
Ken, I love that you just used that example. I had that happen this morning and it was very nice. But it reminds me, you can do that through data. And one of the things we keep saying about insurance is we have more data than any other industry. We're the original data focused industry. Yep. Let's use it, right? Let's use it to that effect. If our airlines can do it, who we have far fewer interactions with, why can't our carriers do that? Regardless, life, health, P&C, doesn't matter.
Right.
Supposedly we know more about these folks and what's happened to them than anyone. Use that to provide a more human kind of customer experience. That's a great example. Now, it doesn't mean your flight was smooth or wasn't delayed or anything, but that's okay. They knew how to make you feel more connected to them and friendlier at those moments where they had the right to do that and took advantage of.
Trust and love, really.
Yeah. I did have an example where I gave them my name, left the message for them to call back, gave my name. And then when the phone rang, I thought it would play my name that, it says like when play my name is available. And it just said when valued customer is available. I'm like, wait, why did I tell you who I was? But that's a totally different problem. Althea, maybe you can bring us back to the topic at hand and not my own travel issues. I'd love your perspective again, outside of PNC, coming back to the life space. What is it that you're thinking about as you look at this transformation of the customer experience in claims? I would suppose would be your focus.
Yeah, again, my name is Althea Garvey. I'm the Vice President and Chief Claims Officer for Life Care Assurance Company, which is a reinsurance company that focuses on long-term care. So it's in the accident and health space. And they have a third-party administrative arm for 15 client companies, and I head that business unit. So I empathize with Kent because we're in the healthcare space. And long-term care products in general are phenomenal products, but they're not inexpensive products. So the customer experience request is higher because people are looking for concierge experience because they're in their time of need, and these policies don't get activated unless someone is unable to help themselves after 90 days. So the asks are very interesting. And my perspective has always been that customers and carriers are looking for the same thing. We just look at it from different perspectives. Customers are looking for Michelin star restaurant quality experience in a drive-through time frame. No bumps no bumps along the way. And carriers conversely are looking for timely, efficient, cost-effective drive-through experiences for their clients, but at the same time want to deliver a Michelin star culinary experience. So people walk away with the same perspective. It's just trying to solution how we're going to get there. And now customers are attuned to the time and the innovation that's available to them. And the insurance industry in large isn't necessarily considered to be innovative on digitalization, innovative in product, but not innovative in digitalization. So for example, when we started with the life care process, we still had paper files, but we had to bring that into current, right? Everything needs to be imaged, it needs to be digitized so that we can access the data very quickly. Customers now no longer want to receive checks in the mail, right? Isn't there another way that you can actually help us with claims? Can't you give us a direct deposit? Can you do Venmo? Do you do PayPal? And because these are the kinds of avenues for payment that you're seeing in other industries. Sometimes customers say, well, I don't really want to open up my claim by calling or snail mail or via fax. Why don't you think about an app? Why don't you think about portals? What about online access? So these are the new kinds of questions and requests that are coming, and companies who have not necessarily caught up with technology are now in catch-up mode. So these are some of the lived experiences that we're going through. At the same time, the requests are coming in, balancing that out as quickly as possible, finding solutions that meet the customer need, top of mind, while being cost-effective on the business end so it doesn't affect profitability. So customer service is always top of mind, but there's just lots of different new asks that are tantamount to what we're seeing with technology, and insurance industry is just kind of catching up where we really need to be ahead of the game, like we see in a lot of these insurtech companies that don't necessarily have long time infrastructure issues. We need to be there because that's where the customer wants us to be, to assist them in their day-to-day experiences. They're having a lived experience. We're having a lived experience. We want it to be good for everyone involved. So I'm looking forward to this conversation because I'm looking for wonderful solutions.
Althea, I think you have a very unique customer situation from the rest of the panel in that for people to get to the point of having a claim, they've already been through 90 days of difficulty, of a hardship of some kind. They're experiencing obviously there's something medical going on that is difficult to deal with, could be very upsetting, and the financial impact of that. And then they come to you. Not to say that, losing your house or your car or a loved one in a particular event is any less traumatic or difficult, but it's an instantaneous, and then there's a claim kind of moment versus they've already been sort of grinding through this for a while. So I imagine kind of where the bar is for people and their appetite for putting up with certain things is going to be quite different in your context than it might be, post car accident, post home fire, or even post death on a more, traditional life insurance product. So rich perspective in this panel, and not to besmirch the health insurance side as well. Of course, but again, it's even if it's a long care provision with bills, something has happened, the bills are already kicking off as soon as the provider has issued them. Stephanie, Althea mentioned InsurTech. That's where you get to come in. Different kind of InsurTech than what she was talking about, but as a solution provider that's looking across so many different contexts for different carriers, lines of business, lots of different customer experience moments. I imagine you have quite a bit to add to this conversation.
Thank you, Brian. I'm Stephanie Banky, and I'm with HiMarley. And if you're not familiar, HiMarley is a communication and collaboration platform that's powered by artificial intelligence. And so it enables adjusters to really connect with clients. And so, Kent, I think about what you said about that human connection. So HiMarley sits on about 1.7 million conversations between adjusters and customers. And so we have a really deep and rich view into those conversations. And we recently dug into that data and identified that 46% of 5-star ratings, so on a 1 to 5 scale, 5-star ratings, 46% of the time, it was because of the adjuster's attitude. So I feel like you can't really have a customer experience conversation until you have an employee conversation. So in claims, the adjuster, or whether that's a CSR in sales and service. But we really have to, again, I'm going to go back to that human connection, Kent, that you mentioned, because it shows up everywhere. And we have to be careful that as we're digitizing, we're not backing away from that empathy and that connection. So the trick really for us is, how do you balance creating a technology that still is personal, that still meets you where you are as a customer, that knows you, right? So back to that, leveraging that data that we all have to know you better and to know what your need is in this moment. And then making sure that we've empowered our employees. Do they understand? Are we supporting them properly as we deploy new technology? Is it augmenting the adjuster experience? Is it hampering the adjuster experience? And really understanding how technology and people play together to get the best claims outcomes.
Stephanie, you just teed up the first question, which is brilliant because I don't think you knew that. But we've had questions pouring in, so we get to jump right into this. But this question around that balance, that line between the human and the digital, and the question itself is calling out, digital and AI versus human, is one taking away from the human to human moments of empathy, of interaction, of support that have been the hallmark of this industry. How do we walk that line? How do you think about, in your context, each of you, how you strike that balance and make sure you're still delivering that empathy, but also, getting all the benefits that, whether it's straight through processing or bringing in the intelligence and the prediction and influencing the decision-making and all the kinds of stuff we talk about on the digital side. How do you balance those two things out? This is a conversation that's been the crux of several webinars, panels. We always get questions about it. So we need to address this. So I'm curious to hear everyone's take. And Lynn, if you don't mind, I'd start with you because you've had the biggest break of everyone from speaking. Sure. So we'll follow the same order. But how are you thinking about this at Afix?
Well, I think we look at it from the perspective of, when we leverage digital tools and offer that option to the customer, it frees up our adjusters' time to spend more times with the customers who would prefer the human support. So it's not so much of a, staff reduction exercise as it is an opportunity for us to really support our customers in a different way. And, having such a wide demographic of customers, I can say every company has a mix of people who want a little bit of both. So we try to let the customer determine that right balance of digital speed and human support. And I think customers appreciate that. And just because you can automate something does not mean you should. Straight through processing is a big buzzword. Everybody's trying to do it. But what we found is, customers still want sometimes a conversation to say, okay, great, you've sent me money. Now what do I do? I'm still not back to pre-loss condition. My house is still a wreck. I've got money in my hand. What do I do from here? So we try to really hold their hand and sort of partner with them on the whole claims journey. And it doesn't stop when they have money in hand.
Yeah, that's a great point. So people do say the clock stops as soon as the check's out the door or the wire or hopefully Venmo or Apple Pay or whatever it is. It's not always that simple. There's more to it than that. And Sujit, I'd love to get your take on this because there is a lot more to it than just money. And your core is thinking about this digital claims experience, but then we're talking about the human side of it. So how are you balancing that in a business that is thinking digital first?
Very similar to what Lynn just mentioned and some of the other panelists alluded to. Like I think of digital as table stakes, right? Like having an online experience, be able to do things much more efficiently from a customer's perspective, that's table stakes. But if you really want to create a differentiated experience, one that where the beneficiary in my case walks away saying that was a good experience, I wasn't expecting it, especially given that they've just lost someone who they loved. I think you need human intervention. There's with due respect to all the AI that's been created, I think there is something to be said about a human calling the beneficiary and saying, hey, we're here for you, and this is how the claim's going to play out over the next 2 to 3 weeks, and here's a phone number, here's my name, please call me back if you have any issues. So definitely I think using automation to create that capacity and the bandwidth within the team where they're not doing the mundane stuff, but then using that to kind of enhance the interactions with our customers. And I mean, Brian, I think you mentioned something about like the bar being bar moving for digital experience, like in your opening statement. I mean, I think of this outside of the industry, like insurance industry, like you look at Amazon, right? Like 10 years ago, I think we all would be amazed when a package gets to us in 2 days' time, right? Now that's table stakes. We all expect it. If we don't see the package in 2 days, we are worried that something's gone wrong. But how, like, you look at competitors like, let's say Chewy, which is like the pet insurer, pet supplier, and they've taken customer experience to another level by inserting humans. They write handwritten notes. They personalize everything, every package. And that's exactly what we need to do in insurance as well. Like I think we are kind of catching up on the digital sphere a little bit here compared to some of the rest of the industries. But once we have that, we also need to layer in the human touch points where appropriate.
It's great examples, both on that moving bar. If we can't get it same day or at least next day with Amazon Prime, now we're angry, as before we would have been like, this is earth shattering. This is amazing. But Chewy's a great point because, huge, very successful e-commerce business. They've scaled really well. They've built a great brand name, and yet they're pausing for that moment of almost like boutique, small business experience, even at scale, and walking that line. And obviously, it's a very different context, but they're able to pull it off, and great way for us to pull some inspiration. Yes. Thank you for that. Yeah, Ken, I was going to go to you next.
Yeah. First of all, Sujit just stole two of the examples that I wanted to give, but I'll build on the Chewy example. If we are operating from a place of love, when a customer, a Chewy customer, calls in to say, I need to stop my dog food subscription because my dog just died. So the normal business or the business of 10 years ago would have said, oh, customer lost, we're done. Chewy sends flowers and a handwritten card and a sympathy note about, losing, your most beloved friend, right? And so I think we need to operate more from that place of love and vulnerability. Like our customers, all of our customers here, all of the panelist customers here, our customers only reach out to us in moments of vulnerability. We've had a car accident. We need to make a claim on a life insurance. It's a vulnerable place. And so we need to get really, really good at, operating from a center of love. That's number one. Number two is, I agree with what Lynn was saying, and building on that is, I think we need to all understand what is expected from us from a DIY perspective. Our customers want to be able to do some things on their own. They want to, and Sujit, when you said Amazon, you think about changing your address on Amazon or sending a package to a different address on Amazon. Very, very easy. In fact, if you're doing it on your phone, it's probably going to pull addresses straight out of your contacts. In health insurance anyway, you have to go to your head of HR, tell them that you moved, so the head of HR can go to your health insurance company and you get it. It's a pain in the ass. So I think we need to operate, number one, be a little bit more tuned into DIY and our customers' expectations of what they want to handle. And then number two, just, show up with, from a place of love to handle the vulnerability that's coming in.
Yeah, those are great points. And I think, Kent, to add to that, not just is the process often painful or not as smooth as it is on the digital retail side, but people's expectations are for exactly that. So often everything starts adversarially. Everyone's told you your insurance company is going to be difficult. You got that medical bill, and if you can understand medical bills, we think insurance is complicated. Medical bills a whole other ballgame, and then add insurance and medical bills. For Kent, for you, Althea, I imagine in your business as well, we're talking about two of the most complicated and kind of feared things people will have to face in their lives. So it's not just they're going through something; they're also maybe a bit standoffish. Maybe there's a trust question going into it, and they're sort of they've got their dukes up. They're like, "Oh, this is going to be a fight. Here we go." Navigating that and just doing it digitally or just doing it with people, it feels like you're in a tough spot either way. Althea, how are you looking at that line between digital and the empathetic kind of human to human and navigating this moment, when people are already not in the best position?
Well, first, I want to incorporate all of the statements that have been made by the rest of the panelists, because you couldn't say it any better, right? I mean, we're all feeling the same love, right? And we're all feeling the same pain points. And a claim is the source of truth. It's the time of truth. It's the moment of truth in someone's life where something seriously bad has happened, and they're searching for answers because they paid for a promise. So our perspective is that we're automating for efficiencies to reduce as many manual processes as possible, to increase the amount of time that the adjusters have to increase engagement. I don't know how many times in a lot of different organizations, and I've been in a number of different organizations, large and small, where when you speak to an adjuster and you say, well, I received a call that someone did not call them back. And the adjuster said, I wanted to, but I had to do this. And so I didn't get a chance to return the phone call within the timely manner. So what is the this that's stopping? Is it a manual process? So our goal is to go over as many processes as we possibly can and automate those things that are not necessary, but not to sacrifice the human interaction with the policyholder, which is where the time needs to go. Sometimes conversations with adjusters can average 5 minutes, but there are other times where they can average 45 minutes to an hour, depending on what the customer needs at the time. When your adjusters are hourly workers in certain jurisdictions, right, you have time limits in terms of how long they can be on the phone. So you're managing that process as well. But the bottom line is customer service is top of mind. So it is a balancing act. So our focus again is to try to eliminate as many inefficiencies as possible to free up the adjusters so that they can go back and engage as much as they want with the policyholders who are in their greatest need when they call.
Althea, you're teeing up the next question. So as a heads up, I'm going to come to you first on that one. But I think that's a brilliant point, is recognizing while we might want the human connection, are we supporting our staff to be able to give that human connection? And what decisions do we have to make with what we digitize or add AI to, or straight through process or what have you, so that we can even deliver on this human to human that we're talking about, valuing and thinking is important. So heads up, that question's coming, but we'll dig into that. Stephanie, you've seen a lot of carriers trying to balance that line. How are you thinking about this yourself, and that, digital versus human, and are they at odds? Can they work together? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I feel like it comes to the AI, the technology is all there to augment the human experience. So if we go back to that human connection and we talk about the moments of truth in a claim, there are going to be, if you were to map out using a customer journey, if you were to map out what are the real moments of truth in this claim, and then how do I bring a digital experience and the ability for a human to intervene. So what I mean by that is if you've gone along and you've done straight through processing, you have to be able to give an adjuster an opportunity to weigh in as well. So just as an example, maybe you talked to the customer and they were really stressed about having to buy a new car. They had a total loss in auto as an example, and they're really stressed about buying a new car in this market. Well, that's a place where you might actually want to send a note to them when you issue the digital payment. So you might want to issue digital payments, they get the money right away, but you might want to be able to add something personal that says, Brian, here's your payment. I hope you have luck looking this weekend, finding a new car. If you don't, let me know. If you're not successful, let me know. So you can pair the digital technology, the digital solution with the human, and never forgetting that. And Kent, HiMarley's mission is to make insurance lovable. So I love that you keep bringing that in. If you put the person, the human at the center of this, it's kind of hard to go wrong. If you keep asking yourself, if I were in that position, what would I want? And choice is always going to be one of those. There are going to be times when I want to self-serve, and on the very same claim, I'm going to want just an immediate digital response, right? And so understanding that people should have those choices and they ought to be able to take any path that serves them at the time, I think is absolutely critical.
The good news is there's a lot of agreement. So that's always interesting when people disagree, but I think we are talking about something very similar here. Is you have to have the tools in place, to Stephanie's point, so you can exercise that choice or let the customer signal their choice and serve them, meet them where they are and how they want to be met. Althea, I told you I'd come back to you, and I want to do that. So if anyone's wondering, what do I keep looking off at? I've got all of your questions here on the side, which is also a plug to keep asking your questions. But the question here is, how do you create space and time for empathy when we're crushed by claims volume? And I'm going to tie in a related question I saw up there is, are there particular areas where automation makes a lot of sense because it isn't about a customer facing or, an empathy moment? And so you'd look to that, sort of speaking to your last answer, as, let's get this stuff off people's plates to create that space. How do you think about giving your client facing staff, your customer facing staff, the room to be empathetic?
Well, there's a number of different things that we look at. So for example, I think the most obvious one is caseload, right? Because your colleagues or your staffers will tell you that they didn't have an opportunity to circle back to someone based on caseload. So you have to evaluate staffing. But the other thing that you have to evaluate also is, how many decisions does an adjuster have to make in a day? What authority levels do you give them? Does it have to be second guessed or approved by somebody? Can you increase authority levels? Can you reduce the amount of approvals and those steps, and just figure out how to get to a claim decision the fastest way with a quality review? And so those are the things that we look at. So for example, in the long-term care space, you have to make a decision about a person's medical condition and whether they're eligible. You have to make a decision whether a provider is approved. And then there are certain levels of authority that people have approvals. Well, if there's a log jam somewhere, let's try to reduce all of that so the adjusters can get to the decision faster so that they can get back to the customer service aspect. So we really have to look at the adjuster's workload, the life cycle of a claim, the data points in between first notice of loss and claim decision, and figure out if there are any juggernauts, where they are. Is there anything in that process that you can automate and get off of the adjuster's desk so that they can get back to the humanity of the process? Claims is a human process. It's a humanity process. We're talking about love. Yes, it's love because it's human to human interaction, because somebody needs you in their time of need, right? So if we can get back to that and give the empathy and the hand holding while still doing the adjudication process in a cost-effective, timely, prompt manner, that's the nirvana for everyone. But it's a multiplicity of looks. But to me, I think that looking at the claim life cycle and all of the data points that you have to make decisions on along the way, and decreasing all of the roadblocks for the adjuster speeds along their process and frees up their time.
I'm so glad you brought up authority. You know, we talk about digitization and that's important, but the broader transformation discussion, authority comes into play. Is, you know, how many of these low dollar matters are you making into high dollar matters because you're complicating them? You know, do we really need 3 sign-offs or 2 sign-offs or whatever on a $8,200 decision? You know, and how much more have we spent than if we had just let that frontline person be empowered to make that kind of decision? I mean, I struggled myself with where to draw that line. Is it 10K? Is it 5K? Is it 15? Whatever the number is, to your point, look through your process, look through the decisions being made, and are you truly adding to it? Because if you are, you're also adding to people's plates. And if you're not, you're moving things on faster before you even talked about investing in digitization and transformation and all that kind of thing. Yeah, authority is a great point. I was coming to you next, so it's perfect. Jump in, please.
So it seems to me that it comes back to employee engagement and in some regard training. And you know, let's engage our employees in a really deep way so that they feel empowered to make those decisions. You know, you can draw that line wherever you wanted to draw that line. Is it $8,200? Is it $1,500? But it's never going to be a solid black line. It's going to be gray, and it's probably going to be really wide. And so you need those empowered employees to say, you know, if this were me, I need to give a little bit more here, or, you know, or take away a little bit here. So let's empower our employees to make those decisions. I think that was the beauty of what Ritz-Carlton did, is giving that authority, giving that power to their frontline employees to say, it's your decision. You've got the budget to make those choices, to make those decisions. So you do what you think is best for the customer.
Yeah, and it's a holistic shift in the customer experience.
Right.
And I appreciate, Kent, we're talking a lot about claims. It's where many of people's focus is. You're not just claims, you're thinking about the broader customer experience as well. So if anyone out here is on customer service or the underwriting side, this whole conversation still matters to you. We all face processes, we all face interactions, and including with intermediaries. There's different kinds of customers, if you will, that we interface with throughout the day. So Kent, we're leaning on you heavily to bring the non-claim view to this as well, but that's no pressure. Sujit,
all good.
Can you add a bit here? And I flipped your order so that you didn't steal any examples. I don't know if you were about to use Ritz-Carlton. Kent is taking yours, but
not at all. I mean, I agree with what the panelists have just said. I think the one other thing that we've tried to do is, when we do the surveys, we specifically now ask how appropriately empathetic was that interaction, right? Or the claims experience for them, right? And the reason I wanted to do that, or our team decided to do that, was because we want to emphasize to our employees how important it is. Like, I'm not just measuring them by how fast they're processing a claim or how efficiently they're doing it. I think, caseload management, like Alita mentioned, is very, very important. We want to create the capacity within the team so that they're not rushing through claims, but also kind of direct, like pointing them to the fact that the most important thing with claims is how empathetic was that interaction, right? So, it's something we measure now, and it's something that we use for feedback, and coaching opportunities, not necessarily like, one-off claim might go south because of XYZ reasons, but we watch a trend and see, okay, is there an individual within our team who probably has an opportunity to kind of maybe learn from their peers and kind of get better at it. So that's the one thing I think we do differently. And I think from a straight through processing standpoint, like you mentioned, even though life is like high dollar value claims, we are looking at leveraging data science to kind of process those or adjudicate the low dollar value claims or relatively lower dollar value claims for us, so that we kind of have our adjudicators focus on the more complex ones that need the back and forth with the customer. So a couple of different things, but mostly aligned with what Kent and Alita said.
Yes, the thing about segmentation as one of the enablers of people being able to engage where they need to engage and offload what can be offloaded is, I love the phrase you use, is appropriately empathetic.
Yes.
Like spending hours and hours on a relatively minor thing that someone just wanted resolved isn't necessarily the right kind of empathy for that situation. But rushing through something where they needed you to take time and hold their hand is also not empathetic just because you're getting the money faster.
Correct. And we let the customer tell us whether it was appropriate from their standpoint, right? So it's not like me or somebody, a QA function deciding what was appropriate. The customer is telling us, yes, that was right. And then we can kind of use that as examples to kind of coach our staff. Yeah.
Well, Lynn, how do you look at this? And I'm curious, across all these different businesses and brands, is the definition of empathy different in the different situations you're solving for? Do you think about this more holistically, for AmFam as a whole? Is there a sense of it? How do you look at freeing up the space to provide empathy where it's needed?
Well, I love the conversation about people and processes. There's a lot of things that don't require technology that you can do to make the customer experience better. And I think one thing we found when we brought all these companies together is good customer service is good customer service. So whether you're, at a home or a property, or you work with an agent, or you've bought your insurance digitally, in the end, you still want the same thing. You want an exceptional experience that really isn't overly burdensome on you, and it's fast, and you get what you expected in the end. I'm glad Sujit brought up data, because I think one of the things we do is we try to know our customers before there's a claim. What are their preferences? What information do we have that we don't have to ask them in the worst, day of their life? And what information do we ask them that's available somewhere else? So, did it rain in your area? We probably already know that. And we probably already know how much it rained and what impact you may have had. We know what hail hit. There's a lot of information we shouldn't even be asking customers because it's available to us. So we try to reimagine the claim process a little bit. And as Althea said, what are the things that are stopping the customer from, or stopping the adjuster from spending time with the customer? A lot of times it's stuff that we should be able to get elsewhere and take that off their plate so that they can say, I understand there was hail in your area. We're going to send someone out to look at your roof because the hail was large and we anticipate that you've had some pretty significant damage. Let's get that scheduled right now. It just makes the conversations faster, and people I don't want to say they're delighted because it's a claim, so they're probably not delighted, but they're maybe unexpectedly surprised at the ease in which the claim can get kicked off.
Yeah, and all I could think about in that moment is that's less of a reason for them to talk to a public adjuster then. I don't want to bring up a sore subject, but having had hail claims where the speed of response is directly indicative of whether or not there's a public adjuster who came knocking on all those houses with roofs that got hit. If you're showing them, look, we care, we're here, we understand, we get what's going on in your area, we didn't even have to ask you about it. That person feels like, to the adversarial point before, not only they're empathetic, they're on my side. They're looking out for me. Why would I turn anywhere else? These folks have my back, which is important.
And it's loss prevention, right? Hey, we see hail's coming. You may want to move your car in the garage and avoid a claim altogether.
Right. Mm-hmm. Stephanie, I know the conversations that people have pre and post loss can really contribute to this as well. How do you think about bringing more capability for the staff to provide empathy, given how busy everybody is?
Yeah, so the there's a lot of places where the technology, again, can automate those tasks. And I love that they brought us to this place where we're talking about process improvements. We have really complex products that we sell, but then we layer on top of the complex product, a complex process. And so that is the very first place to start, right? And I also think about measuring. We started this conversation with a panelist mentioning metrics. Are we measuring the right things to get the right behaviors or the right? So HiMarley has, with those 1.7 million conversations, we're running sentiment analysis on all of those. And so we have some new metrics to bring into the environment, and that is a sentiment score. So are you having more positive conversations or more challenging conversations? And what is my ratio as an adjuster versus the person who sits next to me? And how can coaching and training come alongside me and saying, Stephanie, it looks like, in maybe in a workers' comp claim, that your empathy score is not what some of your teammates' empathy score is. So what can we do to empower you and to educate you on what that looks like? How does empathy even show up in a claim? When we say that a lot to adjusters, right? Demonstrate empathy. Have we given them the appropriate training and education on here's what empathy looks like when an injured worker calls you and they're frustrated? This is what this sounds and looks like, So data can always give us that insight into how we're performing. And I do think there's a case to be made for introducing brand new metrics that we've never used as an industry before, because we didn't have the technology. We didn't have those insights.
That perfectly leads into the last question that we're going to get some time to address. And Stephanie, I'm going to stick with you and we'll go around, and I hope we have enough time for everyone. We only have 9 more minutes. But it was something that Kent said that sparked the question. There's another question that spoke to it, but it was around how you inspire your staff to engage in this stuff, for people to care about the customer experience and say, well, you called out my empathy, you've trained me on it, I don't care. How do we get people engaged in customer engagement and customer experience? Stephanie, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, so we are in this really noble profession. And, sometimes from the outside in, I think, we feel like we're thrown in with, big tobacco and oil companies, right? Because we're just sort of this, you got to have it, and nobody really wants to go out and buy it. But the reality is, it is a very noble profession. And are we tapping into that? Are we really tapping into our core beliefs and our values, and are we making them real? And is there some way that I can every day reinforce for you as an adjuster or a CSR or F&OL rep that you are doing good work, and here are some things that were said about your interactions with people in the last week. Here's some feedback. I think a lot of times too, we rely on these massive surveys. I've seen carrier surveys that were 55 questions long, because we're really trying to diagnose where in the process did something go awry, instead of a real-time, you just got off the phone with F&OL. How did that feel? Did you feel better after you got off the phone? Did you feel more protected? So I think, tapping back into, it's a noble profession, and how do we make that come alive? And we really need to make it come alive for our Gen Z and our millennial employees, who that's what they're looking for. They're job hopping every couple of years because they're looking for a place that creates meaning for them. And I think we're in an unbelievable profession to do that.
That's inspiring. That's great. I love when you call out the nobility of the work that we're doing. I hope no one's bucketing us with big tobacco. That would be horrible. We're kind of the opposite, right? I hope. Ken, you sparked this whole question. How do you get people to buy into this? How do you get employees to get excited about participating and moving the customer experience bar?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. One of the ways that we think about this, and we try to activate it at our plans, is we take employees out of the office. We get them into the field. We get them experiencing other experiences in other industries, whether that's retail, whether that's hospitality, whether that's going to a box, a workout box, a CrossFit box. Yeah. It's what are they doing to inspire their customers? What are they doing to inspire adherence or to get them excited about their what they're doing, and trying to bring that then back into our business. Now, what is the pace that you do that, or the cadence that you do that? Is it once a month? Is it once a quarter? Is it once a year? I mean, that goes back to your organization. I would suggest trying it once a quarter, just blocking people's time off. I understand, somebody's got to man the phones, somebody's got to man the claims, but choose a set of employees to take out on these inspiration days, and those will pay back handsomely back into the business. It gets your employee thinking more creatively and really engaged in your business in different ways.
Just in the last couple of minutes, does anyone have other ways that you've found, just Sujit, Althea, Lynn, other ways that you've engaged with your folks to get them to mind? Sujit, you came off mute. I'm going to start with you if you don't mind.
Yeah, I think one of the strategies I've used is that, I don't have a claims operations team and a claims project team. It's all blended in. Like, I want my claim consultants to be part of the change that they want, right? Like, they are the ones who come up with the ideas. They're part of, let's say, agile sessions with some of our developers. So they feel like they have agency, right? Like they control the future state process that they want to build. So I think it's really inspiring, because I see really great ideas come up from them. And there's no change management required. It's not a process that I've designed and like pushed down their throat. They are part of this. So I mean, I would highly encourage, like, anybody listening, like, if you're looking for a great way to motivate your team, include them in as many project opportunities as possible. Give them the agency that I think they deserve.
Lynn, you're off mute, so I'm going to you next, but this gets to that same point around empowerment, authority that Althea, you had brought out. So you're going to get the closing word. But Lynn, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I agree with Sujit. Last fall, we pulled a workshop together. We brought a bunch of adjusters, care center reps in, and we asked them, what is our purpose? Why are you here? Why do you do what you do? And they have become the advocates for sharing the claims purpose across our enterprise. And it's inspiring. And when you listen to them, it is from the heart when they speak about helping people. And they will say, I don't need to know everything there is to know about how to fix a car or how to repair a home. I just need to listen, and I need to be there, and I need to deliver on the promise.
Althea, you get the closing word.
I also agree with everything that everyone said, Sujit. I am a big advocate of bringing people on to special projects who've shown above and beyond initiative. I do that a lot. And you'd be surprised at the insight that folks who are doing the day-to-day bring to you. So that's one thing. And the other thing I don't think any of us should forget are just the very simple things like a thank you. But not only the thank you to the person, but the thank you and the acknowledgement to their team, to their supervisors. And I'm in a very small company, right? We're about 250 people. I send a thank you note to the CEO and to the CFO and the COO, and I CC the adjuster to say, this is the work that one of your adjusters did on behalf of a company or a client company or a policyholder, and the acknowledgement and the kudos that they received. I wanted you to be aware of what's happening within your team. And that goes such a long way with people really feeling that they're seen and heard and that their work means something, not only to themselves, but to everybody that they're working with. So just thank people.
Althea, you raised a really good point in this. Is we're talking about the customer experience. We're talking about the empathy that we put outside the company. We should remember that inside as well, right? Show empathy to our own people. Think about their experience. How are we supporting them in maybe not the toughest moment of their life, but coming in every day, virtually or in person, to stand by people at those most difficult moments of their life. We have to recognize that. So I think that's a beautiful point to end on. Thank you, Sujit, Althea, Lynn, Kent, Stephanie. Fantastic conversation. We had so many great questions. We didn't even scratch the surface. They just kept coming in, and we got questions in the chat as well. It means everybody was engaged, which means great discussion today. So thank you, all of you. And thank you, everyone who joined in. I hope that this was valuable.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.